Hi, I'm Dakota from Washington. Before I tell you my crazy story, please like and subscribe. My mom was a nurse at a kid's hospital and worked really odd hours. Since she was bringing me up alone, we stayed at the hospital in a small room, and I was obsessed with all the rich kids who came there. I hardly had any luxuries, and when kids in the hospital got gifts during festivals, all I got were hand-me-downs, and I hated it. So one Christmas, I decided to get even. Did you know that the hospital has a Christmas Eve ghost who only targets kids with really expensive things? You're just making that up. Really? Try sleeping with your gifts tonight in your room and see what happens. And later that night, I snuck into their rooms and made the creepiest sounds. And the next morning, all the kids freaked out and had thrown out their presents. They even called their parents to get moved to another place immediately. And Mom almost got fired. She was pissed at me for days. But at least I was able to sneak a pretty sweater from the pile of gifts for myself. One day, I even wore it to school thinking I looked amazing. But sadly, being a nobody meant no one noticed me, except for my bestie Mariah. That's a cute sweater. I know! What does one have to do to get noticed around here? Growing up, I learned that being rich was the answer to everything. People noticed you, they were kinder, and life was better. But Mom thought otherwise. Money and fame only favors those who work hard. What are you talking about? The Kardashians didn't work hard, and they have everything. That's because they belong to a popular family. You don't. Mom was right. If I wanted to be rich, I had to start hanging out with the popular crowd. My first target was Kenzie, the cheer captain, and the most popular girl in school. Kenzie doesn't even know you exist. Besides, she's so snooty. Why would you want to be friends with her? Duh, she's a queen. Have you seen the party she throws for her girl gang? I just need to work my charm. Watch this. Hey, Kenzie, do you mind if I borrow your, I was mid-sentence when Kenzie simply walked off, like I was invisible. Wow, that was painful to watch. Whatever, she had her earphones on. Over the next few weeks, I tried everything to get Kenzie to notice me. I laughed a little too hard at her dumb jokes and came early to school so I could grab a seat next to her. My efforts paid off when one day in 12th grade, the teacher gave us our test results. OMG, my dad's gonna kill me. I got a D again. That's not so bad. Besides, D stands for diva, and that's what you are. D also stands for dumb bimbo. What did you just say? Just ignore her. You deserve better, Kenzie, and I can help. You see, I'm kind of a genius, so let me take care of your homework. You are? Oh, and you got an A? Okay, I trust you. And just like that, I was in. Kenzie and her friends were sweethearts and really needed me to help them out with their homework. They even trusted me to pick their lunches and grab their morning lattes. There you go, Kenzie. Your oat milk latte with just a dash of coconut sugar, an extra shot of espresso, hazelnut sauce, and vegan ice cream. Just how you like it. Oh, you're a darling, Minnesota. Dakota. But Kenzie just walked away sipping her weird coffee. What are you doing? Kenzie has you wrapped around her fingers like some errand girl. What's next? You'll clean her shoes and wash her bathroom? Oh, come on. She needs my help. And no good deed goes unnoticed. Mariah didn't agree with me, but I didn't care. I was with the popular crowd, but I still wasn't as famous as them until one day during lunch, something unbelievable happened. OMG, someone help him! I looked across the room to see Isaac, the new guy in school, and a famous singer, choking. I'd seen my mom at work sometimes perform a Heimlich maneuver, so I jumped into action.
Oh my god, you saved my life. What's your name?
I'm Dakota.
Wow, thanks Dakota. Join us.
It's cool, actually. I'll just have lunch with my friend right there.
Get her too.
Mariah gave me a death stare as I reluctantly pulled up a chair next to Isaac. But just when Mariah was about to sit down, Kenzie kicked the chair out from under her. Oops, sorry. I was just stretching. You totally did that on purpose. Mariah, relax. I'm sure it was just an honest mistake. It's fine, Kenzie. We were just leaving anyway. After that day, Isaac started inviting Mariah and me over to his table daily. And slowly, we became part of the elite circle at school. That's when people actually started noticing me. I could tell Kenzie was a bit weird about it, especially when Isaac invited me to one of his parties, which was amazing. I was dressed in my most expensive outfit, but I still felt shabby. I was just admiring the place when I ran into Kenzie. Kenzie, hi. I'm sorry, I wasn't looking. Maybe you weren't looking in the mirror when you dressed like that. Anyway, you're here now. Go get me some punch or something.
Don't listen to her, Dakota. You look just fine. And get your own drink, Kenzie.
Isaac pulled me away and introduced me to the rest of his friends before slipping into the backyard.
I never really thanked you for saving my life. I'm surprised at how strong you are. Like Lady Hulk. Most girls I meet are super delicate, but you're as strong as a horse.
Did he just call me manly? Before I could reply, I suddenly tripped over a rock, but Isaac saved me just in time. I could feel my heart racing as he held onto my waist. And the next thing I knew, we were surrounded by 100 photographers going crazy. Isaac pulled me into his limo and his driver fled the scene. On the drive to my house, pictures of Isaac and me together started flooding my phone. What the heck is happening? These paparazzi are calling me your girlfriend.
I know this is crazy, but please don't tell anyone we aren't dating.
What? Why?
Maybe you've heard about me and Lucy?
Two of the hottest young pop stars having a super messy breakup? Yeah, hard to miss that one.
The truth is, I'm still not over her. If people think you and I are a couple, Lucy will surely notice, and maybe she'll rethink our breakup.
That's lying.
Technically, it's like hiding the truth.
Your fans pick apart everything about your life. Faking a relationship will be tough.
I know, but try. I have a feeling you're good at it.
I didn't want to trick people, but being with Isaac would change my life. Besides, there were worse things in the world than fake dating a pop sensation, right? News about me dating Isaac spread like wildfire, and the next day at school, people were treating me like an A-grade celebrity. Dakota, bestie, oh, you look amazing.
Really? That's a first.
OMG, you're so funny. I was wondering if you'd like to go shopping with me. I'm sure you need to upgrade your wardrobe, right? I can help you. Yeah, sounds good. My life had taken a whole 180-degree turn, and I was loving everything about it, except that being Queen Bee was a full-time job, and I didn't have time to hang out with Mariah anymore. I have to go shopping. My wardrobe is on life support. Tomorrow then? Actually, I have to attend a show with Isaac. So now what? We're not friends anymore because you're famous? Don't be silly. How about we hang out the day after? Fine, but don't be late. I really need to talk to you. But the next day after his show, Isaac told me that we had an interview scheduled at the same time as my plan with Mariah. But I can't. I promised Mariah I'd hang out with her.
Oh, come on. It's for the Rolling Stones. And I'll drop you off after, okay?
I agreed, and kinda had the best time. They asked me questions about my life, and I felt super important. But then my eyes fell on my watch, and I freaked out. I was so late. I immediately rushed to Mariah's place, but she refused to see me. So the next day, I stopped her while she was leaving for school. What now? I'm sorry. I was with Isaac and Isaac. It's like you've joined a lame girl cult. Oh, so annoying. This boy has changed you completely. Look at your clothes, and what's with those stupid curls? You think if you do this, he'll notice you more? He's shallow, just like all of them. And guys like him don't fall for girls like us. Listen, I'm sorry I blew you off yesterday, but it was important. And if you don't like my clothes or my makeup, there's a better way to say it than being an absolute witch about it. I don't even know you anymore. Oh yeah? That's what happens when you don't hang out with your real friends. It's called growing up, Mariah. Maybe you should try it too. I instantly regretted my words, but I was so mad at Mariah for being a baby. After that day, we drifted apart and completely ignored each other at school. I missed having her around and thought about telling her that I was only fake dating Isaac, but I knew she'd judge me for it, so I kept quiet. Time passed and Isaac and I got closer. Eventually, I started liking him, and sometimes I thought he liked me too. And it wasn't just an act. But one day, Isaac asked me to accompany him to a tattoo parlor, saying it was something important. When we got there, he rolled up his sleeve to reveal a tattoo with a girl's face that looked like his ex-girlfriend Lucy. And for some reason, I felt a bit jealous. He got a tattoo for her?
Removing it was more painful than when I got the tattoo.
Well, why did you remove it then? I mean, you're obviously trying to get back with Lucy, so you should have just kept it.
That wasn't Lucy. I got it in memory of my childhood bestie who was in an accident many years ago. I miss her, but looking at it every day just makes me feel weird. You know what I mean?
A week later, at a huge concert, Isaac did something unbelievable. In the middle of his performance, with hundreds of screaming fans, he pulled me on the stage and shoved a mic in my hand. Isaac, what are you doing?
Just sing along.
I tried to sing, but I croaked like a frog. This was the first time ever I was in front of so many people, and I froze. The fans started booing and laughing, and I dropped the mic and ran off the stage. Isaac caught up with me after that. Why would you do that? It was so embarrassing. I'm a national laughing stock.
You're supposed to be my girlfriend. How can you not know the lyrics? Now come on, don't make a big deal out of this.
I'm your fake girlfriend, and it is a big deal. I don't want people to think I'm a fool. You know what? This whole thing was a mistake. I'm leaving. I was so embarrassed, I couldn't sleep a wink that night. The entire weekend, my phone kept buzzing with messages and calls from unknown numbers. I couldn't answer them, not now, after being a public joke. When I went to school a few days later, I could feel all eyes on me. Just then, a bunch of media people surrounded me.
How does it feel to lose your boyfriend and self-respect?
Did Isaac only date you out of charity? They were brutal. This wasn't the kind of fame I had in mind. I turned around to leave, but Kenzie stopped me. I always thought Isaac was too good for a nobody like you. And obviously, your embarrassing stunt sent him running back to Lucy. She flashed her phone in my face with a picture of Isaac and his ex-girlfriend Lucy in some fancy restaurant. I felt betrayed and miserable. But what was I expecting? We were never in a real relationship. Aw, are you crying? Shut up, Kenzie. I turned around to see Mariah behind me. You guys are back together. Now that's a happy ending you deserve. And I think you deserve a makeover. Ah, my limited edition Prada! Kenzie screamed and stormed off as I turned to Mariah. I'm sorry, Mariah. I was a total idiot for choosing them over you. That's true. One real friendship is better than fake dating a shallow celebrity. You knew? Of course I knew. We're BFFs. I know when you're lying. Why didn't you say anything? I could have used my best friend. I thought you didn't need me anymore. And I had my own issues to deal with. That's when she told me her parents had let her know recently that they were getting divorced. Mariah, I am so sorry I wasn't there. You're here now. So let's forget everything and move on. I'd love that. Mariah and I made up, and she helped me get back on track with my studies. Isaac tried reaching out to me a few times, but I wasn't ready to get dragged into another mess, so I kept my distance. And a few days later, he left for his global tour. I decided I'd follow in my mom's footsteps and become a nurse once high school was over. I was done with this whole idea of being rich and popular. Fame really wasn't as great as it looked. One day, I was helping Mom with something when all of the kids at the hospital started screaming in excitement. I went outside to see what the deal was, and I was stunned to find Isaac. What are you doing here?
You weren't answering my calls.
Why should I? You embarrassed the heck out of me and dumped me the next day. That was so shallow of you.
You were the shallow one who was dying to please Kenzie. You agreed to date me to show off and used me as a tool. But look at what you did. I'm in love with you now, and you don't even care.
Of course I do. Hold up. You love me? Then what about Lucy? I saw your pictures.
I met Lucy that day to tell her that I'm finally over her because I love you, dummy, just as you are. Kind and smart. Wasn't it obvious?
Nope. You should have said something.
In case you haven't noticed, I suck at expressing my feelings. So, you think we can give us a real shot?
Maybe, but I can't be in the spotlight again.
I promise. So, dinner tonight?
As long as it's not chicken.
I was alone in my room. I turned off the lights and locked the door. Then I sat behind the closed curtains, occasionally sneaking a glance towards the black car that was parked in front of our house. I held my phone in my shivering hand, ready to call 911, whilst also knowing that that was the last thing I could do. All I could feel in that moment was fear. At any moment, our lives can turn upside down, and for me it was all because of the junk my dad had been collecting. Our lives were perfect, but that changed overnight. If I had just kept quiet about the secret I had uncovered, our lives wouldn't be in danger right now. I wish I could have told someone of what's happening so they could save us, but I knew I couldn't. As I peeked out from behind the window, I saw flashing lights in the distance. Then cops descended and surrounded the whole neighborhood and even closed the roads. But what was happening? Wait, was that my dad being grabbed by a police officer? Were they arresting him? This wasn't what was supposed to happen. I know what you might be thinking, that I have a criminal family. But no, that isn't true. Let me tell you about my dad. My dad and I are very different. He used to take me to the cinema to watch our favorite action movies. Those movies were our only shared interests. To be honest, I don't like my dad's other hobby. I really find it silly. He is a junk collector, or a historical collector, as he calls it. He owns historical artifacts from Egypt, Greece, China, and ancient civilizations I can't even pronounce. He is a very well-off man. He loves to spend his cash, but he spends it on such frivolous things. My dad was always willing to pay a high price for things that I found worthless. If I were in his shoes, I would have bought a giant cinema screen and created our own home theater in place of all the junk he brings home. My mom encouraged Dad's weird hobby. She had designed and made a whole room to entertain our guests in. It looked like a museum. She loves to invite her high-class friends to parties here. As for me, I hated attending any of those and watching my parents show off their wealth. One day a few weeks back, my dad had been out buying junk at an auction, and instead of coming home with artifacts, he came back with a huge, scary-looking man called Ned. My dad had invited him to ours for coffee. This was so weird, even for my dad. Not that he'd invited a stranger over. My mom and dad loved showing off to strangers. But my dad had only bought one thing at that day's auction, a tiny gold amulet. I thought that Ned was going to be boring, but that wasn't the case at all. Yes, the man wore a formal suit, but he was fun to be around and told lots of jokes. But what started as a joke ended up as a disaster. My dad made me come and meet our guest. I asked him if he was impressed by my parents' junk museum. Mom and Dad glared at me, but he laughed out loud and said he was just getting to know his new neighbors and he wouldn't mind seeing some more so-called junk. He explained that he had moved to the house next to us a couple of days ago and had met my dad at the auction. They had no idea that they were neighbors, but soon they got to know each other through a conversation about ancient Egyptian amulets. 2 days later, my mom invited her friends to another party, and for the first time, I actually wanted to come, as this time Ned would be there. The party started, and Ned was one of the first people to arrive, but I started noticing some weird behavior from him. I didn't mean to watch him, but I kept following him with my eyes throughout the night. At first, it was because I thought he was the only interesting person there, but not tonight. He was acting strange. He was dressed all in black. He didn't smile much and didn't speak to anyone. It was as if he was no longer the same person I met before. Soon I started to get suspicious. You may think that I'm over-exaggerating, but Ned was watching the walls and corners in a strange way, as if he was looking for something. One of the guests approached me and started up a conversation, so I got distracted from Ned, and when I looked back, I couldn't find him. He had disappeared. But where had he gone? Is it possible that he had left? I thought so at first, but then I saw him leaving the museum room to return and mingle with the guests. That was weird, as Dad usually locked it when he held big parties. During the rest of the party, Ned didn't speak to anyone but my dad. He was even trying his best not to speak to him. But when the party was over, I'd forgotten all about his weird behavior. His relationship with my dad grew bigger by the day. He would visit us with and without a reason, and Dad was happy with his visits. I later learned that Ned was an archaeologist and was very impressed by my dad's collection. So much so that my dad had agreed to let Ned borrow and study many of his artifacts in exchange for getting a mention in a book that Ned was writing. One night, I heard a voice outside of our home. I looked out of the window to find Ned standing next to a huge black car. He was arguing with someone. I couldn't understand his words, but I could see his hands moving aggressively as he talked as if he wanted to punch the guy. Soon the other man got in his car and drove away. Then I thought back to Ned's weird behavior at the party. I didn't trust him, so I decided to Google him. What I found was really strange. I found nothing. No articles or research or anything. How could this be possible? He was supposed to be a world-renowned archaeologist. At the very least, his name should come up in an article. My suspicions against him increased. I wanted to tell my dad, but he wouldn't believe me, especially as he and Ned were so friendly and Dad was so pleased to be written about in his book. For the next few days, I continued searching the net for Ned. I widened my search to find anything about him or the book he was writing. Then I found out something, and I wish I hadn't. What I ended up uncovering was so shocking that I didn't believe it at first. I never thought that my dad's weird hobby would put him in a position like this. I found an amulet displayed on sale on one of the black market sites. It was the same amulet my dad had bought during the auction where he had met Ned. I heard him clearly telling Ned how special it was. It was one of a kind, so it must be Dad's. And now it was for sale on the black market. I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't know how I would face my dad. In the morning, Ned came to return some of the pieces he borrowed, and the amulet wasn't with them. Was it possible that he and my dad were together in this? After Ned left, I yelled in my father's face. I accused him of selling things on the black market and being a criminal. My dad's expression changed. He looked at me for the longest time and then told me in a low voice to go to my room. He didn't even answer my accusations. I had to find answers out for myself, and if he wasn't going to tell me, I had to speak to someone else. I left my home and I went to Ned's home. I knocked on the door and went inside. I didn't think twice before saying, "I know the truth. I know who you are and why you moved here." I told him that I suspected him and my father of selling historical pieces on the black market and that I knew he wasn't really an archaeologist. Hurriedly, he shut the door and locked it. He moved toward me, looked me straight in the eyes, and asked me what I knew. He placed his hands between me and the wall. I had no place to run. I felt scared. I was so naive coming to confront Ned by myself. Now I could be in danger. He placed his head close to mine and asked me if I had told anyone my suspicions. I told him I hadn't yet, but I would. I was so scared he was going to hurt me, but he didn't. He relaxed and started to laugh, just like how he laughed when I first met him. He sat me down and brought me a glass of water before unraveling the whole truth. What he ended up telling me shocked me. Ned wasn't an archaeologist. He was an undercover police officer placed to follow my dad, who was suspected to be in a gang that trades on the black market. He was investigating my dad so that he can lead him to the gang's kingpin and arrest them. He told me that I couldn't tell anyone, especially my dad. He knew that my dad was just a naive old man and assured me that if the plan went well, Dad wouldn't get in trouble. I went back home feeling sick from shock. I couldn't believe that my dad had gotten caught up in all this. When I got home, I overheard Mom and Dad talking about Ned. I listened in. What he said left me utterly confused. He was telling my mom that he knew Ned was taking his artifacts and returning fake ones to him. He also said that he found one of his antiques being sold on the black market. He said that Ned was the one who was the criminal. Who was lying then? I went out of the house feeling so lost. That was when I saw Ned carrying his bags to his car as if he was moving house. I ran inside, back to my room, and from my window, I started filming him on my phone. He then suddenly looked towards my window. I couldn't tell if he saw me or not. Then I saw my dad leave the house and go over to Ned's house. What was my dad doing? He went inside. I watched for over an hour, and nothing happened. Then I received a message that said, "I'm holding your father hostage. If you call the police, I'll kill him." Ned had kidnapped my dad! All of this just over some old junk? I shouldn't have doubted my dad to begin with. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. I felt my entire body going cold. My poor dad was being held hostage because of me. Moments later, the whole neighborhood was filled with the noise of police sirens. Who called them? Was it my mom? Police officers came running from everywhere. Then my dad stepped outside. A police officer grabbed him and dragged him out of sight. Then the cops stormed into Ned's house. After half an hour, the cops emerged with Ned, who was in handcuffs. They put him into the back of a police car. I ran outside in tears, looking for my dad. I saw him chatting to a police officer. Dad saw me and ran to me and gave me a big hug. It turns out that my dad was smarter than both Ned and me. Dad had been suspicious of Ned for a while. When Ned had started borrowing some of Dad's antiques and returning them, Dad had realized they were copies and that Ned was selling the real ones. Ned was the one selling on the black market all along, and he had lied to me about being undercover. In fact, it was my dad who had been undercover and working with the police for the last few days. My dad may be eccentric, but he's no fool. He was able to see through Ned's tricks to see who he really was. I now have a new respect for my dad, knowing that he had helped the police catch a criminal. Perhaps his hobby isn't so silly after all. Has your dad or mom ever done something really shocking? Let me know below, and don't forget to subscribe.